to the Boys and Girls Club Career. Hello, thank you for tuning in today to the Boys and Girls Club of Albany Career on Wheels segment. Today we have two wonderful young ladies that will be coming on and sharing today about their careers and the wonderful things that they do with Citi Foundation. Citi Foundation is a partner of the National Boys and Girls Club of America, and we're so excited to have them on today with the Boys and Girls Club of Albany. I'm not going to spill all of the beans about who they are and the roles that they have, but I do want to introduce them to you and all of our Facebook family and friends, partners, and donors of the Boys and Girls Club of Albany. One of the young ladies that will be speaking today is Miss Javette Hines, who is an employee of Citi Foundation. Also, we have Miss Gina Nisbeth, who is also a wonderful employee of Citi Foundation. So we're going to make way an opportunity for them and our teams to share some of the wonderful things that they have researched during their career launch program, questions to ask these wonderful two employees today. So stay tuned, get ready to experience another Career on Wheel broadcasting segment. Hey, all of our Boys and Girls Club fans and members from across America, special shout out to you all. Make sure that you comment which club that you're tuning in from today. And as always, happy Wednesday. Hey, let's get ready for this segment. Hello, Miss Gina. How are you?
I'm well. How are you, Don Travius?
I'm great. And Miss Javette, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thank you. Good to see you.
Hey, that's so wonderful. And I'm so glad that you all took time out of your day-to-day routine schedule to come on today to share with us in this wonderful experience. So I want to first start off by asking Miss Miss Gina Nesbitt, if you would mind sharing with us a little bit about yourself and the role that you play with Citi Foundation.
I would be happy to. It is my pleasure to be here with you guys. So I'll tell you how I came to the organization and what I do now pretty quickly. I've actually been at the bank for 23 years, and I started in a group called Sales and Trading. And what we do there is, well, we were trading municipal bonds. But I've transferred from trading into a banker role. And I've been a banker for the last 10 years. I make loans and investments, mostly to real estate projects in low income areas of the country to build things such as charter schools or performance centers, manufacturing facilities. We build grocery stores, all kinds of real estate development around the United States. And that's what I do for a living.
And also, Miss Javette, hey, go ahead and tell us all of the wonderful things that you do. Your title stretches.
So again, thank you for having me, for having us. My name's Javette Hines. I've been at Citi for 12 years. And I work in an organization called Resource Management Organization. So essentially, I work in the area that's the supply chain with respect to the bank. And my specific job is I work with supplier diversity. So working to ensure that minority and women-owned businesses have the opportunity to be a part of our supply chain. And that's actually all diverse businesses. But I also have accountability for supply chain sustainability. So that's focusing on looking at things from an environmental perspective, human rights, labor law consideration as it relates to our suppliers. So super excited to be here. And certainly as a Georgia native, I'm happy to participate on behalf of Boys and Girls Club of Albany.
Again, we thank you so much for the work that you all are doing as Citi employees. You all are constantly making a difference every day. And so we're so appreciative for everything that you're doing. And so looking and reading over your bio, understanding of the roles and the major parts that you all play in the city, comment section thank yous and shout outs and different things or questions that you may also have, because these young ladies are very educated and scholars in their career fields, and we want to pick up as much knowledge and jewels that they have to share with us today. So, teams of Albany, take it away.
And
So
Don Travius. Don Travius.
Yes, ma'am.
If you don't mind, I would really like to just give the boys and girls a little bit more to bite on, if you will, about the bank and all that the bank does, all the various roles that exist at the bank. You know, at the very core of banking, of banks, what we do is we take in deposits and we make loans. That's at a very basic core of what the bank is. And so the bank officially starts out as taking in deposits and using those monies to distribute in forms of loans. We've also evolved over time. And so banking includes all kinds of financial services. And so for Javette and myself, we have to be in a small portion of a very large institution that does all kinds of things. And so we can talk about our roles, but we can probably also give you a little bit of information on the other roles that might exist at the bank.
Hey, and that's great. That's great news to know. Any other skills or good things that you all would like to share as well? Or are we ready for questions and answers?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to call up our first person today, our club member, who's been around the club for approximately about 5 years now. And so he's been engaged in community service projects with us. So I'm going to call him up to come on with his first question for you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Isaiah Williams from Albany, Georgia, and the Boys and Girls Club. My first question to you is, how did you get your job?
Can you repeat the question?
My question to you is, how did you get your job?
How did we get our job? Okay. So I could start. I actually had a very interesting route to the bank. And so what I'd like to talk about is how I got my job, but how most people in my profession get their job. I did not get my job the way most people get their job. I graduated with a master's in business, so an MBA. And I was had an opportunity to meet someone who became somewhat of a mentor to me. I networked with this person, and I came into the role as what we would call a non-traditional hire. So I was a little bit older than most people who would come into my role, and I had a little bit more education than people who would come into my role, but I didn't have the work experience for my role. So as a non-traditional hire, at 30 years old, I came into an operations job at the bank, and I did that operations work for about 3 years, and then I was promoted into a trader role. So even though I had the education, I didn't have the background for the role, and I was able to get it by coming into the operations space. But for most people who come into either a trader role or a banker role, they start out as an analyst. And that is where we typically hire at the undergraduate college level or at the graduate level, is in the analyst program, or the next step up from that would be the associate program.
And for me, my actual path to getting my job is actually a little bit different as well. I mentioned supply chain management, but what that is purchasing goods on behalf of the corporation, goods and services. So that may mean purchasing the tables and chairs you're sitting in. It could be purchasing computers, phones, any of those things. It could be purchasing food, a number of things. But in this case, is working with suppliers who provide those things on behalf of the bank. And so my actual path was an undergraduate degree at Clark Atlanta University, and actually started out in education. And then I ultimately went to law school. So I went to law school, after undergrad and ended up at another corporation writing contracts, working on software and licensing agreements and doing different kinds of deals and negotiating things. And then I eventually came across this role, which is really taking a look to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to do business with a big corporation. So I did some part of that at another corporation, and that allowed me ultimately to get to Citi, who wanted to continue on that same path, but also to kind of take it to the next level. And that's how I added the sustainability piece to it, so that we're now focused in my space, not just on supplier diversity, so making sure we're diverse people that work with us, but looking at the environment, human rights, and some of those other things that that hopefully we can talk about a little bit later.
All right, our next wonderful young man, his name is actually Prince. So I want to call him up today and allow him to ask his question.
My name is Prince Whitfield. I go to Boys and Girls Club in Albany, and my question today is, what are the qualifications to become a new hire?
Prince, was your question, what are the qualifications for our jobs? Can you just repeat it for me, please?
What are the qualifications? Speak up loudly.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so what are the qualifications?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so probably depends on the role. Citi is a very large bank, and as is Gina, my role is largely operations. So I'm not in actually the financial sector, as when you think about a big bank sometime, when you think on the trading floor, but we certainly have those opportunities as well. For me, traditionally in a supply chain management role, it may be a typical business role, it may be a finance role. But over time, there are a number of people who actually do have law degrees. So I do happen to be a licensed attorney. But when I went to undergrad at Clark Atlanta University, I actually was an education major. And I focused very heavily on language arts and social studies as a concentration. So I think the key thing for any qualifications is being a really good writer, being able to negotiate, being able to lead, being able to have good conversations with people, being able to exercise some amount of patience, but also to be able to collaborate. And those are some of just the basic qualifications. And then of course, the additional training based on the job that you might go into as well.
Yep, and I would say for a trader or for a banker role, you absolutely want to have good writing skills and good speaking skills, but you certainly want to have good math skills as well. So what we look for in an entry-level position is that a person would know how to model. If you've seen any, or you've had any experience with modeling or had the opportunity to do that, and that's where you understand what let's say you're looking to finance a project, and you understand what you think it will cost you to build the project, but you're not quite sure what the result of how much, when you build that project, how much you will be able to earn in revenue from the project. So you'll want to model out what we call the inputs and the outputs, what goes into building the project and what you expect to get out of the project. And so I would suggest that if you were thinking about any finance type of a job, you would think about math and accounting, and that you would look at least at the high school level and the college level if you could learn some modeling skills.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, and we're back to our wonderful scientist, Miss Tamia Jordan.
Hello, my name is Javette. My question for you today is, what are most enjoyable about your job?
Tamia, I'm going to ask if you could repeat it just one more time, please, and come a little closer. Thank you.
What do you find most enjoyable about your career?
Oh, thank you. I love that question. What do I find most enjoyable? Really the opportunity to engage with people, not just the people that I work with every day, but really and truly trying to understand, ways to ensure that people have the opportunity to do business with Citi, to really learn about, all the things that we are capable of. Sometimes people think about a bank as being very one-dimensional, and huge global banks such as ours are really just amazing. When you're in the supply chain, as I said, it's about purchasing goods and services. So even with that, the opportunity to engage with people, the opportunity to work with small businesses who happen to the opportunity to create training and development, the opportunity to do global business and go to other countries to make sure that other women and even minority-owned businesses or LGBTQ or veterans also have the opportunity to do business. That's what I enjoy about my job. Just that opportunity to engage, to be able to meet people, to teach people, opportunity myself to learn and grow continuously as a leader, because you never stop learning.
So the things that I enjoy most about my job, there are a lot of things that I really enjoy about my job. One of them is to be able to see the effects of what we build, because what the projects that we build are intended to provide some benefit, some economic or community benefit to low-income areas of the country. And to have the opportunity to see the impacts of either schools, healthcare facilities, creating jobs, all of these various impacts of the development is something that really makes me happy. Another thing that I really like about my job is I like to work with big pots of money. And I love the opportunity to write a big check for benefit of big projects that I know are going to have a good amount of impact in our communities.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so this is our wonderful dancer right here. She loves pageants and she likes to model all the time.
Oh.
So I'm going to get her to ask her question to you.
Hello, my name is Ariana Keith, and my question for you today is, what skills are required for your position on a day-to-day basis?
What skills are required on a daily basis? Yeah. For me, I would say the most important skills that are required, some of it is industry knowledge. It's learning your craft and knowing your job better than anybody else does. So it's staying current with things that happen in the marketplace and being able to deliver that to the clients on a regular basis. But I will say, just at a basic level, being able to get along with people is very important. Being very well organized is very important. And for me in my job, being execution focused. So always having in mind that at the end of our long process of putting the package of a deal together and getting it all ready for the financing, we've got to prepare for one closing day. We've got to be prepared to bring all the pieces of the bank together to finance the project. And it is it's a very big responsibility to be able to execute on a timely fashion in a way that you either meet or exceed the client's expectations.
And I'll say for me, I think it's about first having goals, right? So goals in your actual job. So even as a dancer, when I was younger and in Georgia, I was a dancer. I liked being in pageants. I liked singing, and I thought I was going to sing on Broadway. I still may one day. But the key thing for me, though, that I learned in being a dancer and being in front of people all the time are the things that have served me well now. And that is the ability to be out front, to be able to speak to people, no matter how big or small the crowd is. The opportunity to begin to learn at a young age that I had to prioritize. If I wanted to dance or to sing, then I also had to get my work done, and I had to get it done in a timely way, or I was not going to be able to participate in those additional things I wanted to do. And if I wanted to dance, and if I wanted a scholarship and be able to get to undergraduate school, because I was worried about my mom being able to pay for it, I had to make sure I kept my grades up and still focused on music, which I actually was able to get a scholarship when I got to college. So some part of that meant having goals, being focused on those goals, starting at a young age. And then so by the time you come to work at a city, then you have those additional skills of being in front of people. And as Gina said, talking to people, getting along with people. And it may not be just the people who, for example, are at the Boys and Girls Club. It may be your other dancers. So for me, it's people that I work with. It is suppliers that do business on behalf of Citi. It is even when I go to other countries, when I don't necessarily speak English, trying to figure out how do I find a way to stay engaged and to know at least a little bit, to try to talk in that language so that they will help me to understand what I need to communicate to them, and we can help each other. And I think the other thing is just always being focused and always being timely in your delivery. And always, when you say you're going to get something done, being committed to executing, and which is one of the things that Gina talked about as being so important.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So they do have another question for you all. So I'm going to ask Mr. Prince to come and ask his second question.
Okay.
My second question is, how long did it take to get to your profession?
Oh, how long did it take to get to our profession? Now I feel very old, so it seems like a long time, but I think because I have fun along the way, I'm going to say not long. I've been at Citi for 12 years. I was at another company for 11 years, and then I actually did work in a law firm for a very, very short time. But over that time, each step was a learning or a training ground to get to where I am now. So it depends on where you are. You may start, and depending on where you are, the next level may take 3 years. It may take 5 years. It may take 10 years. I think the key thing is to think about, where do you want to go? And then kind of drawing a map for yourself and writing that vision down. So as I said, for me, starting out at Clark College, or let's just say before that, starting out in middle school and high school, what I did know is that I wanted to be successful. And I did know that I wanted to be famous. I'm not sure I'm famous yet, but we'll get there. But for me, that meant taking the time, again, like I said, to read, work on my grades, and even making sure that with teachers, that I started to talk to teachers about what my dreams were and what my vision would be, so that long before I could get to thinking about becoming a lawyer or getting into business, that I knew what people expected of me, at least in terms of the kind of work they were looking for. So I say, think about that now, like middle school and high school. How long will it take you to kind of get to, if you want to do AP honors or AP honors English or some additional thing? How long will it take you in terms of studying for the SAT or the ACT? All of those kinds of things went into some of my initial thoughts when I was younger. How long, when I got to Clark Atlanta, would I have to pay on my own, or would I be able to get a scholarship, which I did in going there initially in music, but still had to pay some. So I think sometimes it can take 3 years, can take 5 years, but just plan and think about your vision, and that will help you. For law school, as an example, it was 3 years after undergrad for law school. And then when I went to the first corporate company, 3 to 5 years for each incremental change in terms of my next step. So I'll turn it over to Gina now.
Boy, Javette, you've answered that question so well. She didn't leave me much space. But I will say, I think absolutely right. I think at the crux of the question, many people, most people, I think, don't really know where exactly, when you say where you are today, when they're your age or younger or even older, they're not quite sure where that place is. Very few people, I think, start out as children saying, I want to be a banker, a supply chain manager, of this role or that role, and in fact, really make all the steps to get exactly to that role. Most of our paths tend to take very different directions that maybe we could not have even imagined when we were in middle school or high school. And so My very first job when I was in high school was to work at a grocery store. I was a cashier at a grocery store. And I think about, never could I have imagined that some X, Y, or Z number of years later, that I am working in a bank. And how I look at my job a lot today is how I looked at my job when I was a cashier as a high school student. In a lot of ways, a lot of things are the same. And a lot of the training that I got, even when I worked as a cashier, a lot of that training has prepared me for the job that I'm in today, and has helped me to understand, quite frankly, what I liked most about the cashier job, that then led me to find a job that was similar in one way or another way. So I think just having that opportunity to have early experiences, and the more early experiences you have, you better understand what you like about certain elements of it and what you don't like about the other, what other elements you don't like. And then that will help you to identify where you think your next steps should be. And again, most of us really don't set out at even your age knowing where we want to go or where we want to be when we get to my age or Javette's age. But so that kind of doesn't answer your question in the way that you've asked it, because I think for most of us, there's no such thing as getting to a specific place. We are always learning, we're always growing, we're always trying to get to that next place. And Javette mentioned it as well, that she's still looking to be famous, and so am I, right? Someday we're going to be famous. We're still working towards goals that we have for the future.
Yeah, one of the things I will say to you, Trent, and to everyone, is that my first job in LaGrange, Georgia, was working actually at the same company my mother worked, answering the phones during the summer as a receptionist. And during high school, I worked at Burger King. So Burger King, I knew how to making the sandwiches, but also running the cashier. So understanding money, answering the phones as a receptionist, understanding how to talk to people, how to greet people, understanding, of course, even if someone was coming to that company, right, getting them to the next person. And those were some of the things that were transferable, so to speak, right? So that as you're growing from a college perspective and thinking about college or junior college or whatever it might be, you're at least learning some skills at every step. The receptionist, and again, even at Burger King, learning about food preparation, which is so important these days in terms of understanding health hazards and being clean, etc. But then money, learning to manage a cashier, right? Not being embarrassed about working at Burger King. I loved Burger King, especially on Friday nights when everyone was coming, through, until I, of course, started to cheer and all those other things. And I wasn't quite happy to be there. And that's when I started to do more of the receptionist work. But the key thing was just skills that you want to keep learning and growing. And I'll say the other thing for me, going to church. Sometimes, we're younger, we don't necessarily want to be there all the time, but learning to speak, learning to come up with, whether it was poetry, whether it was singing in the choir, doing different things that now have helped me to evolve over time. So critical. And I never would have thought that even where I am today, I would have been. And coming from LaGrange, Georgia, I wouldn't have thought I would have been able to start travel globally, whether personally or professionally. But little small things along the way have helped me to gradually get there and to know that your dreams can come true. Okay, I hope that helps.
And some of the things that we want you to make sure that you think about it. The more people you talk to, the more you will better understand what you're interested in, where your passions lie. And the more experiences you have, like the work experiences or church experiences, life will help you. The more you experience life, it will help you to find what your path should be.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, back to our scientists. Hey, and by the way, ladies, you all are doing a wonderful job. Y'all can't see me on camera because I'm taking notes.
Hello, my second question today is, who are the most important people in your industry?
Who are the most important people? What was the rest of that?
In your industry.
I still didn't get that. In my circle?
In your industry.
Oh, most important people in our industry. I had a hard time with that question. I saw that on the list, and let me see, what did I come up with for that? I don't think I had, I think the most important people in my industry are the people that who I would like to emulate. They are the people who I personally believe are leaders or thought leaders or strong or passionate or knowledgeable. I don't, I grew up with the phrase that everybody puts their pants on one leg at a time. That no matter who they are, they still put their pants on one leg at a time. And I believe that while there are mentors, for sure, we look for mentors, but we each have to find our own mentors. We each have to identify who we think are the most important people, and learn from those people. So I don't have, I mean, Javette, I don't know if you had a different answer for that.
Yeah, I don't know that I do, Gina. Even as you talk, I don't know that I have a most important person or people in my industry. It's more about probably people along the way and the skills. So, you said like put our pants on one leg at a time. And for me, it's growing up, or even by the time I got to undergrad, what sticks in my mind every single day is I'll find a way or make one, because that's our motto. And then when I went to the first corporation, it was trust and accountability. So people in my industry that resonate the most with me are people who continue to be innovative and creative, who tell me how to make sure I can include minority and women-owned businesses versus perhaps ask me why it can't be done, or people who perhaps want to think of some new and different way to do something, and people with whom there's trust and they lead and they come up with new ways and they want to innovate. So I'll say I'm thinking more from a skills. I don't have an industry person, but there are certain things I look for in terms of having people in my atmosphere, in my corner. That is both personally and professionally, because we're talking about work. But in addition to your work, just like your schoolwork there and being at Boys and Girls, you have to have a circle of friends that have to also be good people that have the right kinds of personal goals that you have. They want to be successful like you do. They want to do well in school like you do. They want to be respectful to parents. So for me, it's about, like Gina used the word emulate. I want to emulate people who have already ascended to where I want to try to go. And I want people in my space who are in the same circle in which I want to go. Not take me backward, but always going forward. That helps.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, come on, Miss America, Miss Albany. Come on and share with us today. By the way, she really enjoyed the comment about dancing and your adventures of wanting to be a dancer in music. She really enjoyed that.
Well, my second question to you is, if you could start all over, would you change your career path in any way and why?
Love that question. That's a great question. I would not change my career path, because I believe that was my destiny, that was my fate. What I would change, though, is how much I learn from other people, how much I network with other people, how much I talk to other people, how many other experiences I had, or how often did I have an opportunity to talk to people who I could learn from. Like Javette said, the more you surround yourself with people who are going in the direction that you want to go in, and I don't mean just people who are 10, 15, 30 years older than you, but even people in your own friend circle, or your own family. The more that you identify people that you say, those are the kind of people that I want to be like, or I want to be around, they help you to think about how you can be better. They are really great at helping you to be a better person. And so I think I could have learned a lot more if I had more people when I was younger in my life to learn from.
Yeah. I love that. I would say the same thing. I think the good news is, like I said, trying to do those pageants in the 3rd and 4th grade early on, and having to sing, having to dance, and even making an early mistake. I think I remember one year I was supposed to sing for a fraternity and I forgot the word as soon as I got there, and because I made myself so nervous. So I think learning early on to make mistakes, I therefore feel like there are no regrets in life. So there's not necessarily a different path that I would have taken, because even being, I'm a lawyer and I'm licensed to practice law. I don't practice, but I stay engaged from a legal perspective in New York and Georgia. And I am an artist at heart, but I find that I can still write poetry, which I do. I still sing occasionally. I actually even own a guitar. I'm not a star with that just yet, but maybe that will be the thing that will make me famous. I don't know. But I still do some of those things, right? And what I love to do is read. I've always been an avid reader, so I love to read. I love to write. And so I find that all those things I love to do, I'm able to do in all of my jobs and in the whole pathway that I've seen. And like Gina said, I think the bigger piece, and the reason I don't have any regrets or change anything, because I might have missed some of the wonderful people along the way. And certainly there have been a few little bumps where I would have wanted something to happen quicker. Coming right out of law school to immediately pass the bar and get a job, coming out of law school to immediately just do a number of different things, or going from undergrad to law school. Maybe things happening differently, or meeting, different people on with, but I've met some great people, and that has been the most amazing things in terms of growth and development. But I think, like Gina, the only thing I would think about as you grow, just take this time now, Boys and Girls Club age, and as you go, to feel like every single bit of nugget of information you're getting from someone is good information, and it's a lesson. May not be a lesson for that moment, but listen to it, because that's the only thing. And meeting people along the way, not being able to pull all that information in sometimes. And so now that's the only thing I think about, like, wow, I remember when my grandmother said this, or wow, I remember when Mr. Shorter said this in Black History class, or wow, I remember when Professor Rose said this in criminal procedure. But still, at least staying close to people, listening, that continues to be the pathway for me. So no regrets, just great stuff. And the stuff I love artistically, I can still do, and I still do it.
Yeah, and I think I would just to add a little bit more. I think the other thing is we don't get tomorrow back. It never comes back. So whatever we did yesterday, it's history. And we did the best we knew at the time, and we move forward. But tomorrow is another opportunity. And so that's why I always try to look forward to say, I'm still here. I'm still healthy. I'm still strong. Every day I've got the opportunity for greatness. And that's what I try to work towards tomorrow.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Mr. Willis, take us away.
My second question to you is, are there any negatives to your job?
Negatives to the job?
Yeah.
I don't know that they're negatives I think they're negatives just in life sometimes, right? And the negative just may be the expectations that you set. So for me, if I have an expectation of a day working out in a certain way, a negative could be for me that I had 12 hours in the day, and at least 3-4 of those hours, I wanted to work on a certain project. I wanted to call a particular supplier. I wanted to write a workshop and call someone else to another corporation to do that. I didn't get a chance to do that because something else became a priority that I also needed to do internally. So that might be a negative. Or a negative sometimes may be, and especially right now in the midst of COVID-19, we're all working from home. So normally I have a commute when I go in the morning. I'm meeting and talking to people every day. I get to walk out the building. I get to come back. If I want to have lunch in the building, I can. If I don't have to. I get to see people, even if I don't know the people on the streets of New York, just to see them, including the subway person playing in Oregon, is a good thing. But I don't have that right now. And so my whole family, we're all here trying to find our different little corners each day. So that kind of is somewhat of a negative perhaps for them, because my days actually seem longer because I don't have the commute. to break up the monotony of just work, work, work. And so by the time I finish at the end of the day, the decompress, the time to just sit for a moment before I now am engaging with them and just talking to my daughter who's 11 is not quite the same as it was when we had a little bit of a break and a commute. And I'm sure we're all experiencing kind of a different thing. So I'll say a negative. Time sometimes can be a negative because just something else may take precedent or priority over something. And I'll just say in reality, sometimes, some idea that you might have had that you thought was an amazing idea, someone else may think is a good idea too, but the timing may not be right for it. And then sometimes that's okay because their idea or the timing may be that what the corporation needs is not your idea at that moment. And then you have to manage that. And again, that's about managing expectations. So I don't say things are so much a negative as it is trying to manage the expectations that we have with time, commitments, and priorities is what I would say.
Yeah, so I would say, with full disclosure, full honesty, I think in any role there are going to be some negatives to that role. In any job you do, in any relationship you have, any of those things, there'll be some negatives. And what I try to focus on is, do the positives outweigh the negatives? Because I think that is when you feel like you're doing good work, you're getting things done. But I will say in the deal, very specifically, when I want to finance a project that I think is a really awesome project and I don't have the opportunity to do it, I don't like that. Either because a competitor has offered a better price and so that customer goes with the competitor, or because to Javette's point, maybe the organization has decided that that's not the type of transaction that we want to close or do at this time. So there are definitely the competitive juices in me. Absolutely. I don't never like to lose, and I don't like to pass off of a deal that I think is pretty cool. The other thing is, just with every role, there's going to be a certain amount of the requirements within the job that you might not particularly enjoy. We've got, in order to provide financing to something, to any project, we've got a whole bunch of other work that has to be done internally before we can get to the point where we're willing to actually sign a check and send money to a customer. And all of the administrative and the other background work that has to happen sometimes, I would not say is my favorite part of the job.
Can I say one more thing, just Will, so you think about this, because Gina mentioned it. So sometimes relationships, right? Just like you get upset with your friend or you're upset with your family, sometimes you do get upset with what may be your colleagues or your peers at your job. But sometimes you can't necessarily react in that same way. So the point is, the negative sometimes can be the relationship. There may be competition. You're competing with yourself, but there may be others that are competing with you. Or it could be that, someone felt that they were treated unfairly, as there are lots of conversations about those kinds of things going on. Those can be negatives, but to Gina's point, then we always have to think about, but how do I manage this? So at the end of the day, it's a positive for me. How do I turn this around so it doesn't become a stressor for me? And I still feel whole and on purpose and on point, even if it's a bad relationship. The same way you want to think about how you manage your friendships at boys and girls or at home. We have the same kinds of situations sometimes at work, and they can be a negative, but then we have to figure out, but how do we make it a positive? Because at the end of the day, the work family is almost the same. It's like family, and you got to try to manage them. So I would just say that too.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so we're going to bring up one of our upcoming high school students. She is an 8th grader. She is a very smart, intelligent young lady, straight A's in middle school, 8th grade year. She goes on all of our college tours. She hosts several people who we have coming throughout our club. So I just want to give her a chance to share today.
Hi, my name is Hope Knowles. I am I'm an upcoming freshman in Auburn, going to Doherty. Do you have any motivational words that you would like to share upon us today?
Did you say motivational words?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you know what? I write poetry, as I said. So I'm going to share something very quickly that I kind of thought about last night. So I'm going to say, my wish for every boy and girl is that he or she finds her way, that life will be so kind to grant you a little time to play. My wish is that in this world today, every child gets lots of care, that brown and black girls don't feel isolated nor have to be pressured to no real feelings share. My wish is that every girl and boy have a moment to dream and be, to live beyond their circumstances, and perhaps a Langston or Condoleezza be, or perhaps just the best version of themselves, so that in the mirror is seen someone who knows who he or she is, can truly be whatever it is they plan and dream. So the key to that for me is just dream it, be it, do it. That's my motivation. That's my thought every day. That's my wish for each of you. Do it, dream it, be it. Be respectful, kind, loving, caring, but always want to lead and always want to grow, and always know that you will always be learning, whether you are 13, 20, 25, 50, or beyond.
I really don't want to have to follow that wonderful poem. That was awesome. The only other thing I might add is that I believe you have everything you need within you. Everything you ever need in this world, you are capable of creating, building, making, providing for. You do have a challenge to go out into the world and figure out how to make that happen, but you are capable of doing it. So I want you to know that you are a whole person. Every one of you there today are whole people who are capable of really amazing things. And so there's no excuse, there's no impediment, there's nothing that you cannot do. As long as you set your mind to it, you will achieve it. And I wholeheartedly believe that. You're welcome.
All right, so I'll come back on now, and I just want to say thank you all so much for the wonderful words that you all have shared today. Hey, it's been a wonderful segment. I got an iPhone full of notes from words and motivations that you all have shared to chase after your dreams, to adapt to the environment that you're working in. Always be teachable, always be tentative and listen. And most importantly, find you a hobby that you can release out tension and release out stress to, and become a poetry artist. So, I want to say to each and every one of you, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing. I know that our workloads sometimes get heavy, but our teams really have enjoyed this opportunity to interact with you all, to ask you questions, to gain knowledge. As you can see, they have their iPads with them, so their iPads is tuned in and listening, and they're going to dissect this conversation and go back and talk about it and create conversation in their Keystone meeting on tomorrow. So I want to ask, is there any final words of motivation, or are you all comfortable with your final words of motivation, or anything else that you all would like to share with us today? And to everybody that's watching,
I would just say continue to be encouraged. We didn't anticipate COVID-19, but it's here. We didn't anticipate some of the challenges that we've seen with respect to, thinking about injustice and equality and those kinds of things. But those moments are here. So just think about ways that you can continue to be positive, that you can continue to be uplifting, but also uplift yourself. Continue to read, continue to find ways to, yes, for sure, when you feel a sense of frustration, write, sing, talk to people, use this time to build relationships, but most importantly, stay focused, stay encouraged, and know that this moment too shall pass, that we will continue to evolve even stronger than we were before. So those are my parting thoughts.
Yes. And I will just say, and everything that Javette just said, share it with somebody else. Pass it on.
all right. So, and then that's again words of wisdom for all of our teams that are tuned in today, and from those across America that are watching. Special shout out to those Boys and Girls Club that are in on the broadcast right now, listening to our Facebook Live, and a special shout out to all of the National Boys and Girls Club employees that helped to make this day in Career on Wheels a special moment. Shout out to Miss Meg and Miss LaFonda for making sure that we are all together and on one accord today and securing this opportunity for us. We don't take it lightly. And on behalf of our CEO, Mr. Marvin Laster, and all of our wonderful board officials, we thank you so much for this opportunity today.
Thank you.
Hey, don't go anywhere just yet. On next week, we will be back, Boys and Girls Club listeners and viewers, for another wonderful Career on Wheels segment. I'm not going to tell you who it is just yet. Just keep watching our Facebook page and stay tuned for any upcoming announcements that'll be coming forth about our after school program and other major things that we have going on. I was just informed that our CEO will be doing a live interview radio broadcast on Thursday. So check out our Facebook page for the flyer and where to go to listen in on that conversation. Until next time, Boys and Girls Club members, we'll see you back here, Facebook Live. Everybody, can y'all give a round of applause to our special guest today? Woo! Hey, thank you all so much to Citi. We appreciate all that you do for our National Boys and Girls Club, and a special thanks for what you just done for Albany. Hey, until next time, we'll see you all later.
Thank you.
Bye now.